Hey guys, I'm going to share a story with you today. And after this story, I'm going to do a story that y'all have asked a lot about. I'm going to share a story about grannies. So, this story may be a little longer than usual, but y'all have asked, and this story kind of reminded me of something I wanted to share with you guys. So, I hope you enjoy. This is an account from a person that remained anonymous that I thought was a really good one that I wanted to share with you guys. He says, I am 44 years old now. I've had two incidents in my life where I am absolutely confident I saw a large, hairy, wolf or wolf-like creature. Once was in the 1970s and I was rather young, maybe 7 or 8 at the most. The creature was looking at me in my bed one night that was quite stormy before I saw it. I remember how big and broad it was and how it stood on two legs, as a human would. It was dark, but I could see this thing easily, as the departed storm was still close enough to flash lightning that lit up everything outside. The thing had a wolf face, yellowish eyes, but not bright yellow, not fluorescent like either, more of a sudden, subdued yellow. It had pointy ears that seemed to keep moving, though the whole experience like was twitching them at the same time for some reason. It never snarled, growled, howled, etc. It just looked at me. I was in bed trying to settle down to go back to sleep after the storm, which rattled me as a kid. For some reason, I felt like I had to look outside. I turned over and I sat up. It was about 20 feet from this thing, and separated only by the wrought iron door with its glass. I became terrified to the point I started yelling like mad. My grandmother and little sister were asleep in the bed, even closer to the door. But at angle, they could not sit up and see what I saw. It was literally scared out of my wits. I started screaming, and quickly my grandmother woke up, turned on the light, then came over to me quickly, and of course she asked what was wrong. I was staring at the thing, and I could only point toward it. I could not speak a word. When I pointed, it started stepping back away from the door as my grandmother looked to see what had scared me. These things know our body movements. They know how to mimic our body movements, and I'll try to go into that here in just a second of what I have personally observed. Y'all like my stories that happened to me, and I will share some of that. She never said she saw it, but I'm confident she did. Her voice changed, and she woke up immediately. I told her. I said, it's standing at the window. And Grandma, you could tell in her eyes, knew what I had seen. I saw the thing turn away, and it moved away at a fast pace. It just stepped away and faded into the darkness. Now, a lot of you all have asked me about my grannies and asked me to share some things that's going to be in the book. Of course, the thing is, y'all ask me a lot is, why do they not just come inside? And I'm going to share a story with you guys. They do come inside. In my granny's house, I'm going to try to give you all a visual of the inside of the layout of how it was. Whenever you came in through the front door, you were into the front room. Into the front room, looking at the adjacent wall, was a cutout hole, like a window, that looked into the kitchen. Through the kitchen was into the utility room. There was a back door straight ahead, and to the left was the restroom. Okay? Now, from that front room, if you went to your right, you would step into a bedroom. From that bedroom, if you walked down, you went into another bedroom. At the end of that bedroom was a small room on the back of the house they had built that had a small door on it that was my uncle's bedroom. The ceiling was only about 6 foot in that room because it was an add-on from the fire. The windows on the outside were only about 3 to 4 foot high off of the ground. It was a highly sloping back into the house that had been built on. Well, there was a night that I've told you these things would come up, and they would try the door handles, and they would try the windows, they would beat on the doors, they would try to raise the windows, they would rattle the doorknobs, they would follow you from room to room. And a lot of you said, why don't they just come in? And I was saving a lot of this for the book, and there'll be a lot more in the book that I haven't shared, and I'm telling you, it's going to be good. They was asleep. I want to share two separate occasions. The first time, they were all asleep, and you have the bedroom to the right. As I told you, you come through the front door, bedroom to the right, the other bedroom through another doorway, just a straight look through into the back room that had the door. It was an old door that had the square windows in it that went into my uncle's room. He had an old-time door lock on it that shut from the outside and had a little ball thing you would swivel. I found an exact picture of that door that I'm going to share with you here in just a little bit. But anyways, they were all asleep, and while they were sleeping, they heard what sounded like, sorry, I've got my phone. What sounded like beans, they said, had been spilled all over the kitchen floor. Like they had just went everywhere, okay? Well, from that bedroom to the right and to the bedroom straight ahead, there was a door to the left that went into the kitchen. None of these had hanging doors. They were all opened as the house was old, except for my uncle's door. So they hear these beans go all over the floor. So they jump up and they run in there to the kitchen and look. There's not a thing in there. Nothing. So, of course, the first thing that they would do is they would check the house. Grandma had her old .32 pistol and the butcher knife. She checked each window, checked the doors. Everything secured. Nothing was out of the ordinary. So then what would happen is they would all go back in, and they had blankets that hung over their windows at night. They would hang actual blankets so you couldn't see the shadows from the outside. So they all went back and laid down, and it was later into the night. There was 8 of the kids. There was 2 boys, 6 girls, and my granny that lived there. They would share beds in each bedroom, girls sleeping with girls, the oldest with the oldest, the youngest, with granny. And one of them had woke up and was sleeping by my granny in the first room to the right. She looked at the doorway, and she seen it. It was standing at the doorway. This thing was tall, slender, wasn't big like the Bigfoot everybody talks about, and it was hunched over in the back, like the same thing I'd seen on the fishing trip that had laughed at me, and I'd almost shot. It was standing there. Now this thing, a lot of the old people called the old hunchback. They called him the old hunchback of the woods, is what all the old people and elders call this thing. It laughs like a hyena, and the reason they gave it the hunchback name is hyenas have the hunchback just like this thing does, and the laugh that it does. It has a weird shriek laugh, and it also has a very eerie laugh. Well, it was standing at the door, the old hunchback, and she covered up her head. She was scared. She was a kid. So she just pulls the covers up over her head, laying in the bedroom, right? You've heard all these beans in the floor. You know there's not supposed to be nothing in the house. We've checked everywhere. But there was. So she covers her head. She lays there for a bit longer, and then she uncovers her head, and it is standing at the bed, looking over the bed at him. It has made it to the bed. She said it's very tall. She can't really see it. It's dark in the bedroom. They turned out their lights. All they had was the yard light outside. It was shining through the windows. All she could see is the silhouette of this thing. And it is standing, she said, not just at the bed. It is hunched up and over the bed, over Granny, her, and her sister. She doesn't scream. She's terrified. She can't even move. What does she do? She covers her head up. It walks around the bed. She hears it walking. It gets to the end of the bed, goes toward the other bedroom, and as it does, she said it felt like a long fingernail. It scraped across the bottom of her feet at the end of the bed. Of course, her feet were under the sheet, but she felt it. She said she jerked. But when she jerked, Granny jerked and her sister jerked, so it must have ran its finger down everybody's feet as it walked along the bed. And it went into the other room. Then she nudges my granny, and my granny gets up, of course, turns on the light. Everybody's up. They can't find this thing in the house anywhere, nowhere, okay? So then, on another night, it was storming. And Granny always said it was worse on a storming night than it ever was on a clear night. And I don't understand that, but if it was storming or raining or whatever, she would always tell you, it's going to be bad tonight. And our thinking would be, it's raining outside, it's not going to come here. It doesn't like to be in the rain, you wouldn't think. But that was just the opposite. It would come in the rain. Something about water, guys. Bodies in these creeks. Bodies found in the water. It always came in the rain was the worst. Water signifies something to this creature. Okay? I'm still working on what. I don't know why. But there's something to do with water. Same as I'm working on the moon. Same as I'm working on the bodies found. There's a lot of things that we're going to have to put together in this puzzle. I work on a lot of this behind the scenes with Cassie that helps me do this. It's deep. It goes deep. But anyways, whatever the significance in the water is, it would show up, and it was always worse on the stormy nights. And this particular night, they heard it at the back of my uncle's window. Well, my uncle was just a little boy, and luckily he wasn't in the room, because whenever they got up and they looked from the bedroom that was here to the right of the front room, through the other bedroom the girls slept in, which had the door to the kitchen, but straight ahead was his door. I found a door on the internet that is exactly like his door, that has the exact same lock on it, and I'm going to share that with you. When they looked down through there, they seen whatever this was standing in that bedroom. Looking through the windows, watching them. Now the bedroom in the middle bedroom is dark with a little light on. Just enough they can see it moving in the windows, watching them. Whatever this thing is, they now all know it's in the house because everybody's looking at it. And you would think at that point, like other stories, that it would just leave, right? It didn't. You know what it does? It turns the oblong door handle and it starts rattling the door. Lucky Granny had locked that door from the inside of the middle bedroom. You could hear the door, she said, rattling, as the doors in them old houses didn't fit tight. They would lock, but they would still rattle. And it was rattling the door, trying to open the door. Or trying to scare you to make it appear it was trying to open the door. And it rattled and rattled and rattled this door, okay? Rattled it hard. It never came in. The next day, of course, the men came and they checked the back of the house. The window had accidentally been left open because my uncle was sneaking cigarettes in the back room and had left the window opened with the stick in it to hold it up. He had been sneaking cigarettes from my granny. It came in that window, and luckily, Granny was a smart lady, a strong lady. I loved her to death. She, like a mom. She had everybody safe because she had made sure everything was locked. This thing, it'd be more than a few years, a lot of years later, actually, my granny had her stroke, and we was all taking care of her. My mom would stay nights with her. I was just a kid. I was probably 16. And my mom would take care of her. She was bedridden. She was paralyzed on one side of her body from the stroke. And it came back one night. And I had got, for Christmas that year, a 30-30. And I had bought some hollow points for it. And I kept it in the middle bedroom, is where I was now sleeping. The one where the girls had slept previously when they were younger. And it came back. And in the bed I was sleeping in, it had a water cooler in the window. They couldn't afford air conditioner, but they had an old water cooler and they worked good. And it was right even with the bed. The water cooler was just perfect where it would blow on you all night. And I was laying there, and that's normally where my mom would have slept. And you could kind of see through the old rusted water cooler outside. You could see the yard light where, it kind of went around the cracks of it. You could, see the light. And I noticed the light disappeared as something had moved in front of that window. I was laying there, and I thought maybe the trees had blown, because the light would move and the trees would blow. Because they had a lot of shade trees around the house, a lot of shade trees. And I raised up and was kind of like at the window, and it goes. And I can't even do the voice that it made. It was a humanish but animalistic voice, and it says my mom's name. It goes, Kay, through the window. It scared the hell out of me. I jumped up, And back then I was fearless. I grabbed my 30-30 and man, I threw a round in it, and I holler at my mom. My mom comes running in there. She calls my dad. My dad drives down there. My dad's a big man. My dad was 6'6", 350 pounds. He was a big man. He worked in the oil fields, strong man. He was very strong. He shows up. I run outside with my dad, and we're looking toward the back of the house. His truck's parked over in the side driveway. Headlights angled behind the house, back where my uncle's windows were, where they came in, the other nights. And the next thing you know, it takes off running. And when it runs, Grandpa had the yard cut in the back. So it ran across the back of the yard, which was kind of dark because, the yard light couldn't get up there for all the shade trees. But you could see it running. And there was an old gate where the gate used to be. It went into the field. The field was grown up. It turns and it runs into the field. And probably its waist higher was above the tall grass. And it's running back to where the old well and the old barn used to be. And, man, it's running. And I was a kid at the time and not really thinking and laws or anything, just it's trying to hurt Granny, it's trying to hurt my mom. So I take the 30-30, I put it on the top of the truck door, put the sight between the shoulder blades, boom, I fire one round, 30-30, hollow point, 150 grain. It fell. Thing smacked the ground. Smacked the ground. My dad gets mad at me. He says, "Oh my God, that was stupid. You just murdered somebody, Mike." And I didn't think like that. It scared me when he started yelling at me. And he's like, "We got to get out there. You just, killed somebody." So we go out there. It's gone. But we hear a dragging noise. And you can hear like something just like if you're dragging a dog house, through the grass, how you can just hear that dragging sound. And I chambered another round. And we were looking. And Dad runs back. Now, I don't know if y'all remember, but in his truck, he had the old silver spotlight. It was completely silver, and it plugged into the ashtray. We didn't have the cordless ones in. So he runs all the way back to the truck, and he turns on the light, and he starts shining it. And whenever he's shining it, her property goes up and then kind of back down below a big old tall mulberry tree they had out in the middle of their field. And as Dad shined it over there, you see this large, I forget what they called that bush. I can't remember. It's a large bush. It was over by the tree that grew up. I can't remember the name of the bush. You see this large bush, and then you see like this bent over, long, skinny armed. I always called it an old man. Like I said, they called it the old Hunchback of the Woods. And you can see it, the silhouette of it through this big light, and it just it goes behind the bush. Like you can tell it hid. We called the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department came out. We told them the full story, everything that had happened. They went out and used a spotlight on the side of their car. They couldn't access the field because it hadn't been cut in a long time. Grandpa had stopped farming. So they're just in their little, I believe it was a Lincoln is what the cop was driving, one of the big old Lincoln cars. And he was shining the light out there. And, of course, he didn't see anything. And whenever he gets ready to leave, he's like, well, probably just a bunch of prowlers, And he's like, if it was in your house and everything, you shot at it. Okay, I probably would have too. Wasn't a big deal. But then the one thing happened we were so happy about. It roars from the mulberry tree, right? It lets out this god-awful, deep, chest just roar. And he's like, that was a bear. And my dad's like, there ain't no bear around here. Ain't been no bear around. But then it screams. And this thing, it screamed louder than any screech owl you've ever heard. It screamed. And the scream was like, best I could describe it, a woman that would be in just extreme pain. So he calls backup. They all go out there and look around. They never do find anything. Of course, we knew they wouldn't. But the next night, I guess we had made it mad because it's whenever it came back up to the house. And it was around that time that it ended up killing my dog. And I did a story on that, and I'll put it in the link if you all would like to listen to that story. It's about grannies too, so I'll put it in the link, or the link in the description, and y'all can listen to that. I hope you enjoyed another one from Grannies, guys. I wanted to share a couple of those with you. There's going to be a lot more of those in the book that'll be better than that one that we all experienced. But I hope you all enjoyed it. I enjoy sharing them with you. It brings back good memories. I think of my granny and the times that we spent, even though they were scary as hell. There was good memories, and Some of the best times of my life was hunting those boogers with loved ones, and I still do it. Alone right now, but eventually there'll be some more help. But I sure appreciate each and every one of you guys. Throw me a like, share it out, throw a comment. It all helps. And until next time, guys, I appreciate each and every one of you. Be safe, keep your head on a swivel, and for sure, stay abnormal.